Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if this is your first time here, then let me tell you that this is a series in which I use tarot and oracle cards to explore topics related to living the intentional life. And before we dive into this week's spread, which has already been laid out, I would like to ask you a question. What do you think of self-care? Is it something that you invest your time in? Many of us, I know, say things like, yes, I know self-care is important, but I don't have time to paint. I don't have time to meditate. I don't have the time to go for a hike in the woods and commune with nature. I don't have time to sleep. I know that self-care is important, but I'm too busy taking care of other people. And yes, I feel stressed, but I'm just too tired to put any mental energy. I don't have the mental real estate for it, or the physical energy to do it. Have you ever heard yourself say that? We want to reframe the idea of self-care. Because yes, self-care is beneficial for us. It helps us. We heal from it. And that is a wonderful thing. But we think, I don't have time to take care of myself. I'm too busy taking care of other people. We don't realize that in our state of less than optimal condition, the work that we do for others is less than it could be. It takes more effort than it might. It takes more time than it could. It might not be as easy or as smooth as it might be. It might not be as beneficial as we want it to be. If we're not at our optimal level, our performance, our assistance might not be up to even our standards. And so, this week's Tarot and Oracle spread begins with reminding us of the importance of self-care, not only for us, but also for others. Not that we go around telling people, you got to take care of yourself, you got to do self-care. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that our self-care is of benefit for others. The more we are able to care for ourselves, the better able we are to care for others. And the more efficiently we can do it. So friends, we've got this beautiful spread all laid out. Let me show it to you. This is the second week I've been using these cards, and they are gorgeous, aren't they? They are absolutely beautiful. And I chose them because I'm about to head off to sea in July, so I thought to get my tarot sea legs ready, I would work with ocean decks before I headed off. And so these are my ocean decks. And if you're curious about these decks, there will be a short clip at the end of this video that gives you the names of the decks and the names of the creators. I will apologize in advance. One of these decks is out of print. It was a limited run and it has been sold out. So I'm sorry for that. But the other decks are readily available. And two of them are one of them is mass market. So the cost is also good. So take a look at that video at the end of this video. And so we just saw the spread. Now again, if this is your first time here, let me give you a general overview of what you just saw. There were 3 cards in the center. Those 3 cards are from an oracle deck, and they give us the overall theme, the thesis statement of the spread. And then around those 3 cards, there were 4 groups of cards. And in each one of those groups, there was at the bottom an inquiry card. a card with a question on it. And above that inquiry card, there were 2 tarot cards, one from 2 different decks, answering that question. So what we're going to do is we'll start with the thesis statement, we'll start with the oracle cards, and then work our way around the questions and answers, which all relate to that central theme. So are you ready? Let's dive into the wonderful oracle cards. These cards are beautiful, aren't they? The colors are so deep and rich and vibrant at the same time. I love them. I love this oracle deck. So what did we see? From left to right, we saw dinoflagellates, the brittle star, and the clusterwink. Kind of funny names, aren't they? Clusterwink, brittle star, and dinoflagellates. Now, we're going to start with the dinoflagellates. And let me tell you a little bit about dinoflagellates. What we saw on the card was what looks like maybe clouds or glowing waves of the ocean. Dinoflagellates are algae. They're a kind of algae. And it's interesting because the name comes from 2 different roots, 2 different language roots. Greek and Latin are smashed together. From the Greek, we get dinos. From the Latin, we get flagellum. Dinos means whirling, and flagellum means whip. So whirling whip. I guess it means that these algae seem to be whirling and whipping because they glow, and they move with the tides, and they move with the waves. So perhaps that's why they look like they're whirling and whipping. Maybe. But dinoflagellates, algae, single-cell creatures. And underneath the main title, the name, there were keywords which were make some waves and raise your vibration. Makes sense, right? Because algae rise in the sea to the top so that they get the most exposure to the sun, they get the most solar fuel, and then they also move with the current. They don't exactly make the waves, but they seem to be, they might even look like they are moving the water. They are making the waves because they're at the top of the wave. So what is this card trying to tell us? It's telling us to charge ourselves, just like the algae do, to charge ourselves with solar energy in all of its forms. What do I mean? Well, there's the sun. Yeah? Just like the algae, we can go out and get some sun rays safely. Yeah? Especially if you live in places with thin ozone layers, we want to be sure to cover up with UV protective sunscreen or expose ourselves in appropriate amounts to the sun so that we maintain our skin but still get the vitamin D. But the benefits of vitamin D, which we create from exposing ourselves to sunlight, is crucial to our health and our energy and our ability to metabolize. Now, vitamin D is a crucial vitamin, and we absorb it the best when we make it ourselves by exposing ourselves to sunlight. So, yes, expose ourselves to sunlight safely, appropriately, regularly. It doesn't mean like go out once a year and burn ourselves up. No, it's a daily thing. 15 minutes a day is perfect. Expose ourselves, charge ourselves in the sunlight, but also indirect sunlight is helpful. What kind of indirect sunlight? Well, we've got the moon. The moon is indirect sunlight. So exposing ourselves and doing some charging in moonlight is also very beneficial for us psychologically, emotionally. We also have stars. Yeah, it's not only our sun, it's the stars. We can go out and charge ourselves by being under starlight. And that might require getting out of the human-made light of the city and going into a place where we can actually see and observe and feel the atmosphere, the energy of the stars without the interference of human created light. And that's a very healing thing to do, right? It's a very healthful thing to do. And it's not the same as going out and creating vitamin D by standing in the sun. I'm not saying stand in the moonlight and you're going to get your vitamin D quotient, or stand in starlight and you'll get your vitamin D quotient. But there's another kind of healing. There's another kind of re-energizing that happens in the night, the reflected light, reflected light that we get at night from the moon, and the diffused light of the stars. And both of those are very helpful for us, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And then once our batteries are charged, because that's one other thing that we're doing, we're charging our batteries. Once our batteries are charged, then we can make some waves. That's the next step of this card, is making waves. Not aggressively, not antagonistically, not trying to attack people. I'm going to go out and make some waves. But making waves, having an effect on our environment. Those waves can be gentle waves. They don't have to be tsunamis. We don't have to go out and create a tsunami that overwhelms everybody around us, but make some waves, make ourselves visible, show ourselves, show our light. Which is the next thing. Shine our light on behalf of the divine, because the dinoflagellates are bioluminescent. They glow. So we can glow. But we can't glow if we haven't charged ourselves, if we haven't done if we haven't cared for ourselves. And one way to care for ourselves is to go out and get some sunlight and moonlight and starlight. So then we recharge and then we can shine. And one of my favorite teachers, Colette Baron-Reid, loves to say, shine on behalf of the divine. Because our light that we get from the sun, from the stars, from the moon, is also the light that we get from the divine. And we channel that, we reflect that, we shine that light out into the physical universe. When we allow ourselves to open to being that light of the divine. Because that light of the divine is not separate from our light. It is all the same light. It's all one thing. It's all one energy. It's all one spirit. We shine on behalf of the divine. Doesn't mean that there's this other thing out there shining a light on us, like the sun, shining a light on us, and that we're reflecting that. When we shine on behalf of the divine, it's our oneness with the divine that is the light that we have within. And what we do is we open. And as we open, that light naturally shines. We shine on behalf of the divine. Because we are the divine. But if we're too tired, if we're too drained, if our batteries have not been charged, we don't have the energy to open the doors. That divine light is still in there. That divine light is still there. It's just that we don't have the energy to open, to shine. So we want to recharge so that our doors can open. Our automatic divine light doors can open. And our natural light can light up a room. Your natural light can light up a room. Do you know that? Do you believe that? Have you experienced that? Your light lights up a room when you open, when you expose it, when you allow it to shine. And our light, as we light up the room, we lift the vibration of our environment. People, plants, the entire physical universe rises in vibration, rises in vibration when we shine. Whoever we are, it doesn't require us to become extroverts to shine. It doesn't require us to become someone different to have an effect on our environment. It just asks us to open and shine. And each one of our colors is different and has a different intensity and has a different hue and has a different vibration. If we're expecting ourselves to shine the same way, for example, the Dalai Lama might shine in a room. If we're expecting ourselves to shine in the same way that a Wayne Dyer shined, if we're expecting ourselves to shine in the way that a Louise Hay shined, or a Mother Teresa shined, then we're doing ourselves a grave disservice and we're closing our doors. Because their light was their light, and our light is our light, and all are equally valid and necessary in this physical universe. Equally worthy. Whether our light is the blasting light of a follow spot, or our light is the almost invisible light of a UV lamp, a black light lamp, or our light is the soft glow of a candle in the dark. Whatever that is, we light up a room. We raise the vibration of our environment if we allow our light to shine. And for our light to shine, again, we need to have the energy to open the doors, to raise the windows, to spread the shutters, whatever your favorite image of that might be, to open. And then we move to the next card, which is the brittle star. Brittle star, below that, well, you saw the picture. It was a very clear picture of what do we call those things? They are starfish. A very clear picture of a kind of starfish, the brittle star. And beneath the name, there were keywords saying juggling, health, and nutrition. So, juggling. We're all juggling to one extent or another. Do you recognize that you are juggling things? Juggling what? Components of our lives. Juggling our activities. Juggling our relationships. Our sexual relationships, our romantic relationships, also our relationships with our family, our relationships with our friends, our relationships with our co-workers, our relationships with the people who help us in stores and who bring our mail. All of those relationships, we juggle those relationships. Juggling objects as well, the material stuff that we have and we take care of in our living, working, physical environment. And all the other components of our lives, we're juggling all of those things. It's part of living intentionally. Now, living an intentional life, part of that is doing the juggling and keeping our balance while we're juggling. Keeping our balance while we're juggling our work life, our romantic, familial, collegial relationships, all of that stuff. Keeping our balance, doing it with ease, with flexibility, with agility. That's living the intentional life as we move with the powerful current of intention. But there are times when we take on too much for us to be able to juggle agilely, with agility, to be able to juggle easily, calmly. And we get frantic, we get frenetic, we get stressed out by having to juggle too many things, and we become afraid that we're going to drop them, or things do drop, and we desperately grab them back up to toss them back up into the air again. That's when we know that we have come into a problem. We're juggling too much. So when it's smooth, when we're juggling with ease, then we're doing well. We're open, we're moving with the power of intention, and we're doing well. However, we want to be deliberate about how much we're juggling. We might want to get rid of excess stuff, excess material. If we have too many things in our house to clean, it takes up too much time, and that becomes one part of the juggling act that becomes difficult for us to manage. If we have too many relationships, maybe we need, or one or two or a group of those relationships are drawing us, draining us too much. We're putting too much energy in without receiving any back, then maybe that is pulling us off kilter, and we want to let some of that go. We want to be deliberate about what we are juggling in all areas of our lives. And we want to be deliberate about, one, being willing to, and actually letting things go. Things that we are allowing to get us out of balance and off kilter. We want to be conscious also of taking care of these beautiful bodies that we are inhabiting. And I assume that if you are watching this, you are in a physical body that you are co-creating right now. And those bodies that we have are wonderful. They're beautiful, co-creative beings. Now, we come into these bodies that we co-create as our eternal selves, and with the cells of these bodies, we co-create this beautiful work of art. And we want to maintain this beautiful work of art as best we can. So yes, take care of our bodies, take care of our health. It's part of this brittle star card. And that, yes, is including appropriate nutrition and appropriate exercise for the bodies that we inhabit. And again, this isn't a time to compare my body and your body and some athlete's body and some other person's body. Size, ability, we're not in the comparing business now. We appraise the body that we are co-creating now and assess what is appropriate. What is the appropriate nutrition for this that I am co-creating? What is the appropriate physical activity for this that I am co-creating? Not you, not her, not him, not them. For this that I am co-creating. What is the appropriate exercise? What is the appropriate food, drink? What is appropriate for this? Whether we are able to move or not. And some of us may be unable to move. And their appropriate activity might be deep breathing. That's what is appropriate for that person. And what is appropriate for me is something a little bit different. And what is appropriate for you is something a little bit different, perhaps. And what was appropriate for you last year may no longer be appropriate for you now. You might have actually improved, and maybe what is appropriate for you now is for you to start doing more. I mean, It's where we are, where this is now as well. Where is this co-creative, physical work of art right now? And what is appropriate for this work of art right now? That's part of this brittle star card. So we look at what we're juggling, and we want to maintain the health, emotional health, physical health, spiritual health of this. Because the healthier we can be for who we are in these co-creative bodies, the more aid we can be to those around us. Our health is not only our business. Our health affects those around us as well. And the more we are able to maintain, to improve, to create well-being for ourselves, also the more able we are going to be to move with the powerful current of our intention. And again, for who we are right now, for the bodies we are co-creating right now. Heck, you might be a triathlete and I am not that. So the way you create your body and the way you maintain and create well-being for your body and your mind and your spirit is going to be different from me. Right here and right now. And the more well-being we create for ourselves, the more health and vibrancy we create for ourselves, the more we are going to be able to shine on the behalf of the divine. The more we are going to be able to raise the vibrational level of our environments. And then we move into the cluster-wing snail. What a name, the cluster-wing. And I assume it's because these shells cluster together. Maybe they wink, I don't know. But the cluster-wing snail, it's a snail. We saw this beautiful shell, right? Well, you saw it, it's a beautiful shell. And our shells are beneficial for us, just like they are for our cluster-wing snail. But if a cluster-wing snail stays entirely in its shell, it will starve and die. It needs to come out. We need to come out of our shells. We want to come out of our shells in order to survive, to grow, to evolve, to live our lives intentionally. Yeah? In our shells, we are going to sink in the current, which means that doesn't mean that we're not moving. The current's going to move us, but at a much slower rate. We come out of our shells. Why do I do that? Our shells. We come out of our shells and we're open to having access to the power of the current of intention. We're in the shells, we think, we come out, we can rise and float and move. So, if we have done the self-care of the brittle star, physical health, mental health, spiritual health, then it's time for us to come out of our bloody shells and shine. Shine, that's the word I was looking for, and shine. Because there is time for rest. There is time for us to gather our thoughts. There is time for us to do the self-care. But then it's time to emerge. Once we've charged, once we've healed, and we're not expecting perfect health. We're not expecting perfect healing, absolute healing. But once we have recharged and healed ourselves to the point where we can open the doors, then we open the doors. And we move out with confidence. Rather than creeping out and I don't know, I'm not so sure about this. If we're coming out with the I'm not so sure about this, what's out there to get me, then we're not ready to come out. But we still want to do a little bit more self-care. Maybe get a little bit more sunlight, moonlight, starlight. But then we can move out with confidence to shine on behalf of the divine. And we can hold space in the present moment and maintain our focus on where we're going. Can you understand? Can you feel that? I don't want to say tension, but can you feel that trajectory? That we're not focused only on the present to the point of losing awareness of our mobility, of our motion with the powerful current of intention. We're not focused in the present to the point that we get stuck here. We're open to the motion forward in the present now, in the now, in the now, in the now, and recognizing that this ever-present now is also moving forward in a direction that we have selected. So we hold space for the present in addition to our trajectory towards where we're going, but we're not placing our focus on that destination because there's no destination. There's no end point to any of this. It's a trajectory. And we know, have faith, trust that the experiences we want, the relationships we want, the jobs we want to do, the homes we want to live in, all of those experiences that we've placed on our powerful current of intention, we're moving in that direction. If we're open to the powerful current of intention and we maintain our focus on the direction. In ease, in abundance, in openness. So we find and cultivate, here it comes again, balance. We find and cultivate our balance between our public and private lives, between our what we consider our inner and outer lives. Because that's also part of the balance that we moved with in the Brittle Star card. And it's also reminding us of it here. This clusterwing snail card is also reminding us of a balance of also inner and outer. So rest, meditation, personal hobbies, all the things that feed our soul, that self-care. That self-care allows us to be who we want to be in the world. And that includes caring for others, certainly. But imagine how much more efficiently, how much better we would care for others if we were at optimum capacity, if we were open to the light of the divine shining through us. And as that light shines through us, we help and contribute to raising the vibration of the environment around us, we might also notice that the people around us might not need as much help as they've had in the past. Our presence, just our presence, may be just the help that they needed. Does that make sense to you? Can you see how being at peak optimum level for us could solve a lot of the work that we're doing with our physical bodies and that's making us tired? That doing for others without giving any attention to ourselves. And also the things that we do for others are much easier. They flow much more freely when we are charged. And we are so much more effective. And we shine so much more brightly. We are so much more healthful for those around us. I think this is a beautiful message. A beautiful, beautiful message. And now we have 4 questions to ask of this beautiful, beautiful message. Let's take a look at that first question. This first question is wonderful. How can I be more flexible? And what a wonderful question to come out of this oracle spread. How can I be more flexible? Yeah, balance, opening. All of that is part of each element of that message was flexibility. So how can I be more flexible? We have 2 cards to answer that question. One is the Judgment card and one is the Page of Cups. And in combination, I think they give a beautiful answer. Let's start with the Judgment card. In the Judgment card, we see perhaps mer people rising up from this deep, and they're half exposed in the water, and there's this angel figure in the clouds calling them up. And it was very reminiscent of the Judgment card in Pamela Coleman Smith's art, right? So instead of rising up from graves, these mer people are rising up from the depths of the sea, which is not exactly a grave, right? But still, they're rising up. And so the Judgment card, rebirth, awakening, the inner calling, and also an epiphany, yeah, the waking up, aha. Spiritual realization is also part of that aha, where we open and we recognize that we are shining on behalf of the divine. Remember that? We just talked about that. So, how can I be more flexible? Our first answer is hearing the call. If we are allowing ourselves to be reborn, to awaken from our sleep, from our shells of the clusterwing snail, if we're allowing ourselves to be reborn from that shell, to hear the inner calling, to have the epiphany, then we are going to be who we want to be in the world. We're going to be who we came to be in the world. And then we move right into the Page of Cups. And this card is actually, in a sense, very similar to the card drawn by Pamela Coleman Smith. We see a young person. In Pamela Coleman Smith's art, that young person is decked out in all of the medieval court finery that they could possibly accrue. And, well, maybe I'm exaggerating, but still, they're decked out in court finery, and they're holding a goblet up in next to the ocean, and from that goblet emerges a fish head. A very surprising thing, right? And in this card, we see something very similar. We see a mer child with a goblet, and from that goblet, a fish is leaping into the air. And maybe for a mer person, seeing a fish is not so surprising, but seeing a fish leaping into the air from a goblet might still give a little bit of a wow moment. It might call for an epiphany. It might call for the judgment moment. So, who is the Page of Cups? Pages are messengers. We'll get to that in just a moment. But the Page of Cups is the creative one. The creative one, not in so much as the creation of the Page of Wands, which is that fire creation. The Page of Cups is the romantic creative, the poetic creative, the one of curiosity. What can I do? What can I make? What can become? The page, the creative of possibilities. The dreamer creative. What can I dream into being? It's a more watery form of creativity. Now the fire, the passionate creativity of the Page of Wands is different. This is the creativity of water, of the dreams and dreaming things into reality, dreaming things into being. It's a very watery and flexible way of creation. It's also the card of intuitive messages. Yeah, that fish leaping up from the cup is like a message leaping up from the waters of our unconscious. So it's the card of intuitive messages. And being open to receiving those intuitive messages. It's also the card of sensitivity, the poet's sensitivity, the emotional sensitivity in the world. And so, how can I be more flexible? I can be more sensitive. Not sensitive in the sense of, don't get close, don't do that. Not that kind of sensitivity, but the sensitivity of feeling what is around us, feeling what is happening inside. Sensing our experience in the moment. And as we do that, we're more open. We are flexibly more open to receiving intuitive messages. We are flexibly more open to discovering our creativity, to dreaming things into existence, because we're not being so rigid. It takes flexibility to be the Page of Cups. And then to hear the call. Now, hearing the call is not a rigid thing of, bang, I'm up. It's a rising, like a wave rises in the ocean. It's a rebirth is not a sudden shooting forth like a bullet from a gun. It's a watery thing, right? And it requires flexibility. If you've ever given birth, you know how much flexibility is required to open for delivering a child into the world. And sure, the body is constricted and pushing hard, but there's also a necessary flexibility there. And I hope that gesture didn't freak you out. So there's a necessary flexibility there. So how can I be more flexible? I can be more open to the watery portion of my life. Receiving messages, creativity, dreams, hearing the call, recognizing the intuitive messages, flowing with the poetic nature that I have, which is different from your poetic nature and their poetic nature. We each have an inner poet who expresses him, her, their selves in his, her, their way. And all of those ways are worthy, valid, beautiful, excellent, exquisite. That's how we can be more flexible. Let's look at the second question. The second question is, what am I expecting? And we know that expectation can be a word that wants some finessing. Now, we expect things that we know are going to happen. We expect that what we have placed on the powerful current of our intention will arrive at the proper time, when we have become the person who is ready to have that experience. We know that. We expect that. And that is living life intentionally. However, expecting things that are going to happen on my terms, in my timeline, in my ego, my unhealthy ego framework, then we've shifted into an unhealthy expectation. So when we're talking about what am I expecting, we're expecting in the sense of being open to becoming the person who will receive what we want, who will receive what we've already created in energetic form. Not the, I expected you to be here at 10 o'clock and it's 10:30 and where are you? Not that kind of expectation. Not the rigid, unhealthy, egocentric kind of expectation, but the open expectation of good. So what am I expecting? Two answers to that question. Another page. Yeah, the page of Earth appears here. There's one more card coming up later, but the page of Earth comes up here along with the moon. We were just talking about the moon, right? Moonlight, the healing of moonlight. And we're going to stay with that healing moonlight aspect when we look at that card. But let's start with the page of Earth. In this page of Earth, what do we see? We see, it's very cute. It's a turtle coming out of their shell, a baby turtle bursting forth into the world, into the physical world. And this is the card of learning and investigating what is. Not the learning and investigating of the Page of Swords, which is different. Now, the Page of Swords is the one who thinks about things and analyzes things and sees things in their minds and talks about them. And it's that kind of educational, going to school kind of learning. Yeah? The Page of Earth is the one who learns from experience, from investigating the world around them. And of course, some schools incorporate that as part of their educational process, and that is wonderful. That's the best kind of school. But there are two different ways of approaching learning. Well, actually, there are more, but let's look at two different ways of the sword and the earth. The sword approaches learning in the ways of books and theories and hypotheses and ideas. The earth is the one of experimentation and working on things and seeing how things work together and manipulating things, and it's a tactile, a Montessori kind of way of learning, if you know Montessori. So it's also the card of manifestation. Now, it's the beginning of manifestation in the physical world. And that excitement of that beginning of manifestation, of I'm beginning to create. And I'm creating stuff. I'm not exactly sure what to do with it when I start creating it yet, but I'm starting to learn how to create stuff in the physical world. That's the Page of Earth, the Page of Pentacles in Rider-Waite-Smith cards. It's also the card of skill development, yeah, because as we manipulate things, as we learn about how things interact and how we interact with things, we begin to develop skills. Yeah, we slop some wet dirt together and we realize that we can make shapes with it, and we start making shapes, and the more we make shapes, we start becoming a sculptor, a rudimentary sculptor, and then we practice more and we develop our skills more. So this is the practical page, the page of doing stuff. So what am I expecting? I am expecting to learn from experience. I'm expecting to develop skills. I'm expecting to evolve as the Page of Earth, of Pentacles, evolves. By working on things, by experiencing things, by manipulating things. Not manipulating things like making other people do what we want, but manipulating things like smashing lumps of wet dirt together to manipulate them into a shape. Manipulate, the original sense of manos, hands, manipulate, to shape with the hands, to create with the hands. And then we have the moon card. The moon card, you know, I call myself the Hanged Man in the Moon, right? One of my two favorite cards in the deck. So the moon, for many people, it's the card of illusion. It's the card of fear and anxiety and the subconscious, but a very frightening understanding of the unconscious. I don't know what's down there. I don't know, I think I want to stay away from that. That kind of understanding of the unconscious. The card means that to many people. And in this card, what do we see? We see a mer person rising up from the waters and singing a song, and we get the idea of the sirens. Yeah, the sirens, the creatures that sang so beautifully and caused ships to wreck themselves against rocks. The siren, the one who calls us into danger. Danger, Will Robinson, danger. Not the robot who warns us of the danger, but the one who calls us into it. But I don't think the siren always has to call us into danger. It's a call. It's a beautiful call. And if we keep our wits about us, we can move to the call instead of the rocks. So this call could be the call of intuition. It could be the call of reflection. Yeah, the moon reflects on the waters of our unconscious. And you say, but that's an illusion. It's not really there, but it is there. It's there for us to see, to investigate, to appreciate. And no, we can't grab it with our hands, but we understand that it's not there in that sense. It's there in the sense of an image, of like a photo on a page of a book. And we don't look at a photo on a page of a book and we say, well, that's not real, and close the book and say it's worthless. We appreciate the photo for what it is. Just as we can appreciate the moon reflecting on the water for what it is. Reflection, and reflect on that. Reflect on the reflection. It's also the card of imagination, of allowing our dreams and visions to appear before us, which is so much easier to do in the soft light of the moon than it is to do in the harsh light of day. It's the call from within. And we get that here in this siren card, right? The siren is not something out there, it's something in here that rises and sings its melody of dreams and intuition and possibility. It creates vibrationally for us, and we allow that vibrational creation to go out onto our river of intention for us to move towards manifestation. And that's what we're expecting. We're expecting this call from within. Just as we are flexible in receiving the call from the divine, from what appears to be the exterior, the external, the above, we also expect the call from within, from below, from the unconscious. We expect our dreams to become appreciable by our conscious mind so that they can become manifest in the world. That's the flow of creation from within to awareness into manifested creation. And that's what we're expecting. We're expecting that. We're expecting that siren call from within. And then for us to learn from our experience in the world. And to become more skilled at manipulating the physical environment, to creating with our hands the lives we want to live. So let's look at the third question, because this is also something we want to pay attention to. Here it is. The questions of this spread are very interesting. How can I be more flexible? That's a here and now thing. What am I expecting? It's, again, moving towards keeping our sights on what the direction we're moving in and what is coming towards us. And then we're back here in the present. What am I in the middle of? And then the fourth question is, again, going to be towards our trajectory. But here we are back in the present moment. What am I in the middle of? And we have two cards. the 5 of fire, which is the 5 of wands, and the 3 of wands. 5 and 3, same suit. And just to let you know, it's this 5 of wands card that I used for my next video of this week. Probably you know this. Maybe you don't. I do at least 2 videos a week. One is this video, which gives a reading of a large weekly spread related to living an intentional life. And then from this larger spread, I pull a question and I answer that question in a shorter video with 3 Tarot de Marseille cards. Now, my Tarot de Marseille video comes from this one. And the question I pulled from this larger spread comes from this 5 of wands answer to what am I in the middle of. So if you want to see that video, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the alarm bell so that you know when that video has been uploaded. But let's get back into what am I in the middle of, because what are we in the middle of? Again, 5 of wands, fire, and the 3 of wands. 5 of wands oftentimes is the card of conflict, the card of rivalry, yeah? The card of contention and quarrels. In the Pamela Colman Smith deck, we see 5 rather male-presenting people holding big old wands, sticks, and they look like they're in the process of beating each other up with them. Now, they're in some kind of perhaps competition at best, and at worst, a battle. Conflict, rivalry, contention, quarrels. Also ego clashing. Yeah? The wands are also the card of ego in a sense. Not the ego of mind, of thoughts, but the ego of wants, of desires. And the ego is comprised of all of the elements, right? There's the emotional aspect of the ego. There's the mental aspect of the thoughts and beliefs of the ego. There's the material aspect of the ego of I am this, I do this, I work this. And then there's also the wants and desires and passions of the ego. And there are healthy aspects to that ego, and there are unhealthy possible aspects of the ego as well. So ego clashing can be that my desires, my wants, and your desires and your wants coming into conflict. So that's a very negative way of looking at this card. That's one way to take this card. But it could also be competition, not in the sense of I am going to beat you, but competition in the sense of we're going to play a game. We're going to, you and me, let's go out and play a game of horse. It's a basketball game, right? Not something I do, but I've seen other people doing it. Let's play a game of cards. Let's play Go Fish. Let's play poker together. Let's play a card game. Yeah? Competition not in I'm out to beat you, I'm out to win, but let's compete, let's play. Playfulness is another aspect of this card. And perhaps in this card with these 2 or maybe 3 salamanders facing these 5 sticks lying on the ground, it could be that sense of competition of who can climb over these sticks. I mean, that could be an aspect of this card. So we're going to look at this card from both aspects, from the playful, competitive side and also the conflict rivalry side. Because the next card is the 3 of wands. And to tell you the truth, when I first saw this card come out, my first thought before I looked at the title was, this is the 7 of wands. Because it kind of looks like the 7 of wands to me. 7 of wands in Pamela Colman Smith's art is a figure standing on a cliff, not a high cliff, but some kind of drop off. And that figure has a large wand, a large stick in their hand. And from below, there are 6 more sticks, wands of equal size, coming up. We don't see who's holding them, but there are 6 coming up, and you get this idea of defensiveness. And so when I saw this card, we saw this mermaid, in the water, and there are these 3 sticks coming up from below. I thought, 7 of Wands, before I counted how many there were. I just got this feel of the 7 of Wands. But no, it's the 3 of Wands. And then I noticed, yes, those 3 are a tripod holding up this, perhaps it's a lens of some sort. And it's the card of progress. It's the card of adventurous course. So this merperson is probably looking through this lens to see where she's going to go and what is coming. And Pamela Colman Smith's art, what do we see? For the 3 of Wands, we see a figure standing again on a cliff. Pamela Colman Smith loved her cliffs. Standing on a cliff with 3 wands, holding one. There are 2 other on the sides. Looking over a sea with some islands and mountains in the background. And there's at least 1 ship coming in the water. Either coming in or going out, we can't tell. So looking at where things are going, where my stuff is going, where I am going, and also what is coming to me. We get both aspects there. So it's the adventurous course, it's progress, it's action from intention. Not action because I gotta pay my taxes, I gotta do this, I gotta fill out these forms. But no, it's the action of intention, which could be filling out your tax forms. It could be, okay, I'm ready to fill out my tax forms. That's action from intention. Rather than, I gotta fill out the tax forms. Okay, very different, right? It's also expansion. Now, she sees where she is going. She expands. Her possibilities expand the more she is able to see. It's a card of productivity as well. Getting stuff done. Now, the 1 Ace of Wands is that first inspiration, that first craving, desire to create something. The 2 is where we figure it out. How is this possible? What can I do with it? Then the 3 is the first step in creation. It's that first beginning of productivity. So what am I in the middle of? Well, hopefully I'm in the middle of having an adventure. Our lives can be an adventure. And not a crazy adventure, it could be a crazy adventure, but not necessarily the adventure of a Jumanji, of going off into a jungle with a backpack and facing wild creatures, but just an everyday adventure of life. What's going to happen today? That kind of adventure. Action from intention. I'm in the middle of acting from intention. Now, how does this relate to the 5 of Wands? The 5 of Fire. It could relate in 2 different ways. Sometimes our playfulness, sometimes our playful, enjoyable competition with others sparks an inspiration of, I could do this. Have you ever had that experience where you're playing with somebody, you're messing around, you're banging things together, and you get this spark of an idea of, not an idea, but a spark of, I want to create this. I mean, there's an idea that probably comes along with it, but it's that inspiration to do something, to create something, to make something happen, to manipulate things to create. Then there's also the possibility of the more negative side of the 5 of Wands, of actually being in conflict, being in the middle of a quarrel, clashing of egos. That can sometimes also birth something new. We might come to a realization of, there's another way, there's another possibility. We could do something else and then move into the 3 of Wands. So perhaps, are we in the middle of? We're in the middle of that 5 of Wands. We're banging stuff together in our daily lives. And Hopefully we're banging stuff together in a playful, enjoyable way, but sometimes we're banging stuff together in a way of conflict, of contention, of ego clashing. But we can always have the possibility of that Three of Wands evolving from that. And some people think of, no, the Six of Wands has to evolve from the Five of Wands. Now, the Five of Wands leads to the Six, which is victory. And that's certainly a possibility. But if we're so entrenched, or we have such a rigid concept of numbers having to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 10, and if we don't go in that direction, we're regressing and we're going backward and something's wrong, then we are limiting our potential of experience. Moving from conflict into the Three of Wands of aha, yes, is an evolution. Does that make sense? And that's what we are in the middle of, if we allow ourselves to be in the middle of it. Oftentimes we don't allow ourselves to have that Three of Wands moment of realization, and we get stuck in the conflict or in the playfulness, and we don't get that birth. But that birth is always possible, of the three, being born into the new. Which is what threes generally are for me, being born into new manifestation. So that's what we're in the middle of. And we're going to be exploring that Five of Wands a little bit more in my next video. But let's move on with this one. We'll move on to the fourth question. Here it is. The fifth question is, what do I want to create? Which is another thing of moving, of our trajectory, right? Yeah, we're creating in the now, but the creation is in the ever moving now. Yeah, it's now and now and now and now and now, which is a trajectory. Creation is a trajectory of manifestation. So, what do I want to create? I want to create, we've got two answers, which I'm going to be rereading these as I'm speaking right now, because my first reading of this pairing of cards was unsatisfying to me. So we're diving in this afresh together. What do I want to create? Start with the Queen of Water, the Queen of Cups. And in Pamela Colman Smith's art, we see a woman presenting figure in a very elaborate throne with a beautiful gown. Garments are lush, beautiful crown on their head, and holding this chalice, this huge chalice with these black figures, which sometimes can look like bats, can look like demons, can look like angels. A very lush, lavish card of emotion. And the Queen of Water, and in this card, what do we see? We see a very frilly kind of, in Korean it's 해파라기. In English it is a jellyfish. It's a jellyfish. That's what it is. So, a very frilly kind of jellyfish, right? In a pink color. And very lacy looking bottom half of the body. Beautiful, beautiful jellyfish. This is the card of the compassionate one, the caring one, the nurturing one, the warm and tender one. We don't necessarily think of jellyfish as being warm and tender, but let's carry that forward in this card as well. Also emotionally stable. Yeah? There's a maturity here. Also empathic. Yeah? From that platform of stability, there is an understanding or a feeling of the emotions of the other, a sensing of the emotions of the other, and also intuition, a sensing of the depths of the self as well. There's a sensing of the depths of the other and the depths of the self simultaneously. And that's what I want to create. I want to be in the flow. I want to be the Queen of Wands, I want to be the Queen of Wands, but I also want to be the Queen of Water, especially in this particular reading here, which was a very watery reading, right? And how did we get here? We started off with self-care, self-healing, balancing, nutrition, exercise, caring for self. And charging up ourselves, and also charging up of ourselves as well. Yeah? Doing the energetic healing as well. Doing the energetic recharging of self so that we can, when we're ready, come out of our shells and shine the light of self around us. And as we do that, as we have cared for ourselves, and when we are ready, we are so much more able to positively influence those around us. And so, as we do that, we want to be more flexible and feel the call of the divine and the call of our inner self as well. We want to feel that call and discover our creative potential, discover our ability to allow our dreams to manifest in the world, to be sensitive, to be poetic. Very watery answers, right? And what am I expecting? I'm expecting a little bit of material, yeah. I'm expecting to learn and discover from my experience in this physical body in the world. But I'm also expecting to have my intuition inform my exploration of this physical universe. I'm expecting my dreams to reveal themselves as I am investigating and working in this physical universe. So what am I in the middle of? Sometimes I'm in the middle of competition. Sometimes I'm in the middle of conflict. Sometimes I'm in the middle of playing, which is even better. And from that, I see my trajectory. I'm in the middle of appreciating my trajectory and acting from my inspiration. So what do I want to create? I want to create this self of flowing, being in the flow, being open, being able to feel and sense the other, being able to nurture and care for the other because I am recharged and I am open, I am shining the light of the divine towards the other, or who we perceive as other. Now that's another conversation because there is no actual other, it's all one. But here we are in these physical bodies. We came into duality on purpose. And so we can also appreciate the otherness of each other. And we shine the light of the divine for each other. That's what I want to create. Compassion, caring, nurturing, intuition. And then we got this Nine of Swords card right next to it. The Nine of Swords. What do we see? Now, in Rider-Waite-Smith cards, in Pamela Colman Smith's art, we see a figure having risen from sleep in their bed. So their legs are stretched out, but they're sitting up in bed with their hands like this, covering their faces in the middle of what appears to be the night. And there are 9 swords up on the wall. And this is seen as the anxiety card, the worry card, the fear card, the card of nightmares and insomnia, the card of grieving and depression as well. The scared card. Yeah? The 8 was when we were trapped in our thoughts. We had trapped ourselves. The 9 is where we are anxious and worried and having night terrors, perhaps at the extreme. And the 10 is when we're absolutely knocked down from our thoughts. So it's that between that being trapped and being absolutely knocked down, it's that anxiety midpoint. So, is that what I want to create? Do I want to create anxiety, worry, fear? No, I don't think so. I think this card is here to remind us that the reason we want to be the Queen of Water, the Queen of Cups, is because there is so much Nine of Swords around in the environment and in us as well. We have that potential. We always have that possibility. And when we are in that Nine of Swords moment, period, perhaps that's the time when we go into the shell of our clusterwing snail and do the healing. We heal ourselves, we do the self-care. Because we're not going to be of any help to others if we're in that anxious space. So we go in and we do the work, because if we don't, we're not going to be the best help that we can be to those around us. But we do the work. We do the care. We get ourselves ready to open again, to be the Queen of Cups again. And that's what I want to create. Because then, if I am, then I can shine the light of the divine on all of those other people who are experiencing the Nine of Swords around me. And rather than saying, you've got to snap out of it, you've got to stop, you've got to be different, you've got to get out of it, wake up, trying to force them, make them get out of it. Instead, we radiate our compassion, we radiate our nurturing selves, we radiate the divine light that we are, and those nine swords will naturally begin to melt. That's what we want to create. And that's the whole purpose of being the dinoflagellates, of being the ones who get energized and then radiate the light into the world, because that's the Queen of Water, that's the Queen of Cups as well. Does that make sense to you? It's the Queen of Cups who has received all of that energy from the sun, from the moon, from the stars, who has a routine perhaps of caring for self, so that the Queen can open the doors and shine the light through the water that she spreads around into the environment of love, of joy, of well-being, of pure awareness. So friends, if you're still here, thank you for being here. Thank you. Please hit the like button, because it helps the channel. It helps with YouTube's algorithms and draws more eyes on the channel. So hit the like button if you're still here. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed, and hit the alarm bell so you do get notifications of when I upload videos. And share this around. Yeah, you can copy links to this video and share them on other platforms if you like. I'm very happy. If you know of a place where you think people might appreciate it, share it around. And comment below. I would love to hear from you. What do you think? What do you think of the spread? What do you think of the way we flowed through the spread together? Do you have another, perhaps, appreciation or perception of what this spread might be saying? Or do you have experience of this in your life as well? Let me know in the comments below. And friends, in just a moment, there will be, again, a clip giving you the information about these decks. And again, I'm sorry, one of these decks is out of print. And there will also be links below. If you want to go and check out these decks, if you want to purchase the ones that are in print, you can use those links. I don't get any financial remuneration if you do use them. Go and purchase one or as many of them as you can. And if you want a private reading from me, there will be a link to my Instagram account, because if you go over there, you can send me a direct message and we can work out a way for you to have a private reading with me. Let's do that. And so friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.